So if that doesn't have concerns, I don't know what does.
So you think Trump is getting played? You think Trump is getting played?
You think Trump could possibly get played? Hold on. Oh, God. Okay. Remember, even if they don't say what they're thinking, the things that they do say are so important. It's not trying to argue against the facts. Well, I actually don't think Qatar is actually that bad. I don't think they do fund that much propaganda. I don't think any of that. No, it's not a fight against the facts. What he accidentally does is he subconsciously, but intuitively, verbalizes the transcendental idea, which is that Trump is a god and he can't make any mistake. And then he challenges him on that ground directly. Instead of fighting on any of the factual claims, he goes, do you think that Trump could be duped? Like, that's like inconceivable. President Barack Obama has accepted a Sky Palace jumbo jet from the Qatari government, which he'll own after he leaves office. Everybody relax, he says in an interview with the New York Times. No.
This is a pretty outrageous gift, a $400 million luxury gift that Qatar is just giving. And by the way, if you say you don't know, tell me what you know about Qatar, what they're doing in the world. Do you have any idea?
Adam, I'm still waiting.
Just answer the specific question.
If he's not going to give you the answer, you go ahead and say it.
But just
tell me.
Do you know anything about Qatar? Do you know anything?
Yeah, it's a Middle Eastern country. Adam.
Just, why can't people just say no? I don't know all about Qatar. Just say it. I don't know anything about it. You don't have to know everything. Like, dog, you're retarded. Everybody on the show knows you're retarded. You're brought here because when you start screaming, you look like a tomato, and that's funny. Okay? That's it.
Okay, they're just a Middle Eastern country. Qatar is quietly becoming a major power player in the Middle East. This $400 million luxury jet, by the way, if they gave it to Joe Biden, the right would be going insane.
Yep.
Including you. What is this? So Qatar, what I know about Qatar is they're one of the richest petro states in the world. I think their GDP is one of the highest in the world, GDP per capita. They're funding terrorism and extremism and jihadism all around the world. And now all of a sudden, they're giving us a $400 million jet.
Kind of weird.
They're a double agent. And we'll get to what they're doing in our universities and our influencers. They're a double agent. They're basically saying, hey, America, we're on your side. We're here funding terrorism, or fighting terrorism. And then they're secretly funding terrorism. And they're letting Hamas hang out in their luxury hotels in Doha. So it's lipstick on a pig. And I'm very concerned about this. Why would you accept? He's saying, well, listen, if someone wants to give you a free putt, you just take the putt. Mr. President, this ain't golf. This ain't Jack Nicklaus. This ain't Arnold Palmer. This ain't.
Oh, no. Mr. President, hold on. Wait a second. So when he was the master negotiator, is he actually fucking retarded? There's got to be like a sitcom scene or some bullshit where some guy, comes into as a CEO and he's like, oh, it's just like basketball. And he gives like the perfect basketball analogy for running the company. And he ends up like bailing the company out of the worst financial crisis. He's like, oh my God, he's so smart. And then like 2 weeks later, there's some huge HR issue. And he's like, it's just like basketball. And it's like, oh, kind of. And he ends up being like, okay. And then there's like 2 months later, something else was like, it's like basketball. And it's like, wait a second. Oh, wait a second. This guy's just a fucking retard. Hold on. Wait, no, it's not at all, sir.
Mr. President, this ain't golf. This ain't Jack Nicklaus. This ain't Arnold Palmer. This ain't Sam Snead. This is a terrorist state who's aligned with Iran and China to some regard, gifting you a $400 million plane. You don't have any concerns whatsoever. They're housing Hamas. They're supporting Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, ISIS. They're sowing discord all over the Middle East. And by the way, don't take Adam's word for it. He's just some dumb Jew on the internet. You know whose word you should take for it? How about the following? The following countries that have severed all diplomatic ties from Qatar: Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, and Egypt, because they've accused Qatar of supporting terrorism and destabilizing the Middle East. So this hidden agenda that Qatar has when they're funding universities and sowing discord, and NGOs and think tanks, and now paying influencers to sow discord around the United States, I have massive concerns. So this lipstick on a pig with this $400 million gift is going to come at a price. They say there's no such thing as a free lunch. Well, this is a free freaking plane. So if that doesn't have concerns, I don't know what does.
So you think Trump is getting played? You think Trump is getting played?
You think Trump could possibly get played? Hold on. Oh, God. Okay, remember, even if they don't say what they're thinking, the things that they do say are so important. They're so good. God, I wish I was driven enough to make video essays, okay? One of the reasons, so when I talk about people going over Trump stuff, okay, one of the things that I say is that they can't be wrong about anything. When they lie about something, they have to commit to the lie forever. And the reason why is because it's not like there's a process where they're like, okay, well, we've collected facts, we come to some decision, and then as a result of that, if the facts change in the future, our decisions or our feelings can change about the thing. That's not the thought process. The thought process is Trump is God, and everything Trump says is necessarily correct. It's not divine command theory. There's a name for, or it might be divine command theory. I can't remember if that has to do with personal revelation or it's just like if something is good simply because God commands it to be good, right? If Trump says a thing, it must be right and it must be true, right? And that's how everything is evaluated. So when people are like, why, no, I don't know what it's called. Divine mandate? I don't know. Maybe. But there's a name in moral philosophy or something for this. So every lie that Trump says, you have to own it basically into perpetuity, okay? Now, when Adam is providing, okay, Larry over here, information about how do we think this looks, like how do you think is, like, or what do you think Qatar is doing? Why would they provide this plane? Why would they do this stuff? It's not trying to argue against the facts. Well, I actually don't think Qatar is actually that bad. I don't think they do fund that much propaganda. I don't think anything. No, it's not a fight against the facts. What he accidentally does is he subconsciously, but intuitively verbalizes the transcendental idea, which is that Trump is a god and he can't make any mistake. And then he challenges him on that ground directly. Instead of fighting on any of the factual claims, he goes, do you think that Trump could be duped? Like, that's like inconceivable, right? In the face of all the facts and the situation that Adam lays out, the response is just, do you think that Trump could be duped? That's the response. And it's like, I feel like that's so telling.
So if that doesn't have concerns, I don't know what does.
So you think Trump is getting played? You think Trump is getting played?
Blame it on BB.
You don't think Trump? You think Trump is getting played?
You're trying to tell me
that's not possible. You understand that is impossible. It can't be the case that Trump gets played because he's a god. He's a perfect businessman. He's a master negotiator, master dealsman, manipulating everybody around the world. Everybody respects him. He cannot get played. It would destroy the entire illusion of what Donald Trump presents himself to be and what these people worship him as.
If Qatar gave Biden a $400 million,
this is so easy. Oh my God. If I get this prediction right, I'm just so good. This is such an easy response. If Biden were to accept it, if Biden were to do the exact same action, of course it would be bad if Biden accepted it, but it's because Biden is not God. If Biden accepted it, it's because he's getting manipulated. But if Trump accepts it, even with the exact same set of facts, if Trump accepts it though, it's because he's a God. He's playing them because he is a God. He can't possibly get manipulated. I feel like the response is going to be a pivot to saying Biden was senile, Biden wouldn't be able to navigate these, Biden would probably getting bribed, Hunter Biden. Okay, let's check. Hold on, let's see. All right.
Airplane, would you have any questions?
No, I question everything, but
okay, but you're not questioning this.
You talk about reporting. Do you know all the details and what entails everything about this story? Just like how you asked me about my story? Do you know?
Oh, he does like a soft denialism. I would question it, but he doesn't question the Trump thing. Yeah, soft denial will get a weaker answer, but.
Oh, that he's not flying? He's not going to be on this thing? This thing is going to go in a museum.
Thank you, Qatar.
No,
we're
you
good.
say thank you, move. No,
because this is going to come at a price.
Again, I don't know.
If Vladimir Putin pours you a vodka and says, have a drink,
okay, so
you drinking that thing?
Let me take a pause.
No.
Tom, I'm coming to you.
So
I got some
frustrated.
thoughts on this because it's all over the place where we went. We have like 3 stories in one, but Tom, what thoughts do you have?
So a very large gift like this from a foreign government, these are the reasons that businesses have rules on gifts. We don't let our salespeople, any company that I've worked for or with Pat and before, you can't take a gift more than dinner. You can't. It says if they want to take you on a trip, you check with your boss. What are they doing? Hey, they're all going to Hawaii. They invited my wife and I to go with them. You say, okay, well, you pay for the hotel room with our company credit card and then pick up one dinner. Nothing extravagant, but pick up one of the dinners. Why? Because you're not for sale. So that's how bribes happen. They give gifts. Did you know that every gift given to the president gets recorded and there's like a cultural office? Most of the gifts are cultural in nature. Yeah. A gold plate from India that was like Peru, almost 200 years old, and it goes in, and you know where they end up? They end up at the Smithsonian of all these gifts that were given. But you give a gift like that, it just opens up all sorts of discussions on, it's kind of weird. You can't do that.
Weird.
So I think when a big gift like this, unless he wants to say, that's very, very nice of you, we'll put it over here, and everybody will use it, appreciate it. That's one side, but it's just why are they giving it? Qatar is a nation of 3 million people. And for all of you sports fans out there, the global soccer fans feel that Qatar pulled off the largest bribe and rigged selection process in sports history when it gave this megalomaniac in 2010 billions of dollars of personal wealth through the back door that they still don't know where it is, and they won World Cup 2022.
Correct.
Not Italy, not Brazil,
Doha.
Countries with massive soccer heritage and World Cups on the shelf. France, Italy, Germany, UK, even US. Qatar wins the World Cup, and it gets played at a time of year where everybody's worried about the athletes. So Qatar is known to be, and by the way, and now Qatar has got problems with its neighbors. You're off the list, you're off the list, you're off the list, you're off the list. It's with its Arab neighbors. It's kind of weird. So Qatar has always had this reputation, and now the gift this big, I don't know. If I was
makes you
president,
think, guys.
I don't think I would accept it.
By the way, can you do me a favor? Play that clip, Rob. Play that clip.
Trump clip?
The clip. Oh, we got a
Play
clip.
the clip, the Trump clip.
It's either stadium.
We got a
Play
clip
this
coming
clip.
through, guys.
Rather-
Don't worry. We got a clip. We got a clip. We got a clip. We're good.
We've helped them a lot over the years in terms of security and safety. I think that, and very, very nicely, and I have a lot of respect for the leadership and for the leader, Qatar. And I think they knew about it because they buy Boeings. They buy a lot of Boeings. And they knew about it. And they said, we would like to do something. And if we can get a 747 as a contribution to our Defense Department to use during a couple of years while they're building the other ones, I think
not?
that was a very nice gesture. Now,
Wow.
I could be a stupid person and say, oh, no, we don't want a free plane. We give free things out. We'll take one, too. And it helps us out because, again, we're talking about we have
So
40-year-old
base.
aircraft. The money we spend, the maintenance we spend on those planes to keep them tippy-top is astronomical. You wouldn't even believe it. So I think it's a great gesture from Qatar. I appreciate it very much.
And do you
I
have the
would
other clip?
never
And
be-
there's a clip where the lady says, "You're ABC, aren't you? You're this ABC."
When he's signing the-
Yeah, when you do that one, and
Epic.
then I want to get into it, so we can go to the next story. Go ahead.
People who view that luxury jet as a personal gift to you.
Every time I see him signing these EOs when they're asking questions, he just looks like a kid coloring, and he's like so happy. He's like, "Oh, this is what they gave me to sign today. I'm so happy."
Why not?
Go ahead.
People who view that luxury jet as a personal gift to you. Why not leave it behind?
You're ABC fake news, right?
Why
It's
not?
only ABC. Well, a few of you would. Let me tell you, you should be embarrassed asking that question. They're giving us a free jet. I could say, no, don't give us. I want to pay you $1 billion or 400 million or whatever it is. Or I could say, thank you very much. You know, there was an old golfer named Sam Snead. Did you ever hear him? He won 82 tournaments. He was a great golfer. And he had a motto, when they give you a putt, you say, thank you very much. You pick up your ball and you walk to the next hole. A lot of people are stupid. They say, no, I insist on putting it. And then they putt it and they miss it.
Piss off their partner.
And their partner gets angry at them. You know what? Remember that, Sam
Take
Snead.
it.
When they
Pause
give
it.
you a putt,
Okay, so there's two things to talk about here. There's Israel. We can't just completely forget about that story with Netanyahu, and then there's the Qatar story. So for me, okay, in a dark way, let's play
Oh my God.
devil's advocate.
Oh my
in
God.
a very dark way of killing an enemy. Okay.
No shot. I would actually be so disappointed. Yeah. I think I would. I think that would be the line for me, and I might have to leave the country. As much as I hate Trump, as much as anything I could say or wish in my darkest desires, if the U.S. president were to die because of a sabotaged plane that they would get from another country, it would just be such an. It would be so even for Trump, I couldn't say. That would be just so cringe. No shot. That would be so fucking cringe.
Give them a gift. That gift is what? Pagers. The pagers then do what?
Blow up.
And then you die, right? Okay.
Technically, it wasn't a gift.
I know it wasn't a
They
gift.
purchased them.
They purchased them, right. So they blow.
It wasn't a
okay.
gift at all.
Totally get it. But I'm now saying that let's go even worse. So if that's something you're buying, it's even worse. Now think about gift. You give a gift. The gift is a plane. And it's
No.
to fly the president.
No, it's.
I don't want the
never
president in that plane at all going anywhere.
That would never happen.
Whatsoever.
Please.
You want to take that plane, you run through God knows how many different things on the back end to make sure we're 100% protected and then use it for something else or put it in a museum. Great. We'll take that gift and put it in a museum. I don't want the president I voted for to be flying that place anywhere. I just don't trust it. And Qatar, you know, the World Cup history, we've all read about it. We've all heard about it. These guys went above and beyond to make sure they got that deal. And by the way, it sucked. The World Cup wasn't exciting over there.
Ooh.
The heat, the weather, the temperatures, what it was like, and it's now empty. Who the hell is waking up saying, I want to go play soccer over there? Those are empty places.
Damn. It sucked, he said. I don't even watch that dog shit fucking sport. Amen.
I think it'll be interesting to see what the kind of pro-Israel right folks say about this. Like Qatar was funding Hamas and was funding the campus protests. So in addition to just the corruption part, there's the hypocrisy of we are currently taking away the green cards and jailing people who participated in the campus protests at the same time as we're taking an Air Force One bribe from.
Why does it feel okay? This is a piece of history that I don't know anything about. I just know what they do, but I don't know why they do it. Why does it feel like, or why does Qatar seem to have such a different vested geopolitical interest than Saudi Arabia? Is there a reason why? Like, it feels like Saudi Arabia is very much like we like the U.S. and Israel's kind of cool because fuck Iran and all that. And then it feels like Qatar is like, actually, Iran's not that bad. And fuck the U.S. But also Saudi's kind of like our big bro. What's going on there? What's a different royal family? It feels like the allegiances are far different, though. Saudi Arabia denounced them. Yeah, I just don't know why. I don't know where that comes from.
Country that was funding the same protests. And the whole thing is just preposterous.
Yeah, I have a chat group or a text group with some of my friends from the fraternity at UCLA, and the majority of them are Jewish. And a lot of them voted for Trump. I think most of them voted for Trump because, quite frankly, he's seen as viewed as more resolute on Israel.
Yeah.
And I said, be clear. This guy likes Jews the way that hardcore evangelicals like Jews. I mean, if you kind of go one layer deeper, their plan for us is not all that great. It's all about the rapture when Jesus comes back, and then they decide to kill most of us.
Based.
And the fact that essentially we have the Qataris giving the president a $400 million plane and sort of turning this into kind of, the ultimate frequent flyer program.
Based.
I mean, first off, it's embarrassing that America needs to take a plane manufactured in the U.S. from the Qatari government. That's where we are.
Cringe.
But also the notion that you have the primary sponsor of Hamas and the political mouthpiece, and you have a country that has given about $4.8 billion of the $14 billion we have received from foreign governments to sponsor quote unquote Middle Eastern studies departments. I mean, just this Jews have to get past the fact that this notion that the president is going after universities because of anti-Semitism is just fucking ridiculous. It has nothing to do with anti-Semitism. It's him attacking progressive institutions and trying to implement thought leadership. That if he really cared about anti-Semitism, he wouldn't be taking $400 million bribes from the primary sponsor of a group that murdered 1,200 Jews. And I'm like, you guys don't see this? You don't see the inconsistency here, and that this isn't about, we have totally become, at this point, pay for play. The question I would put forward to you.
Do they see it?
I do think you have to be really careful. I know it's tempting to group Jews together, but there are like different groups of, there are different groups of Jewish people. Like Jews from Israel are going to view Trump probably quite a bit differently than Jews from the United States, who tend to be more progressive, left-leaning. But Jews in the United States that are major simps for Israel, not just Jews who are like, oh, I think Israel should exist, but major simps for Israel are probably going to align more closely with like the ultra-Zionist Jews than like the ordinary progressive-y type Jews.
Has the text chain fired up since last night?
What they see is they see that it's problematic. What they see more, Tim, is one of the guys in our group who's this wonderful high integrity guy, has this great small business that does specialty products. Those products, you go to a conference and you see those banners and the mugs and the water bottle with logos. He has that kind of business, and it's a great business, $50 million, good living for 200 or 300 people. He's put kids through college on it. It's a family business. And his business is basically shut down overnight because of the ridiculous, sclerotic, reckless approach to negotiating, where we're negotiating against ourselves and both sides are losing around China. And my friends are very, I don't want to say economically focused. Is that fair? I'd say they're more focused on America as a platform for prosperity. I think they're like most voters. They think about who's going to put more money in my pocket. They think that essentially Washington is feckless and useless.
A lot of Jews here in Israel like Trump, but a fair amount of us expected the backstab. What is the backstab? Oh, you guys think it's a backstab because Trump went to Qatar and accepted or Qatar or whatever and accepted a jet? Trump is so unpredictable. Who the knows what he'll do? I mean, it would be smart for Bibi not to turn his back on him. Trump can do anything. Like, the thing is that Trump is retarded enough. Trump is even retarded enough to do something good for the Palestinians, and it's actually bad. Like, everybody's worried, or I saw some people were worried on the Israeli side, and some people seem to be happy on the Palestinian side about, Trump recognizing a Palestinian state. Like, there is a world where Trump recognizes a Palestinian state, and it's the best thing in the world for Israel and the worst thing in the world for Palestinians. And it would be something akin to Trump saying, I'm recognizing a Palestinian state in Gaza, and that will be their state. And there you go, boom. And Israel can do whatever they want in the West Bank. I think Israel would be ecstatic with that. Like, oh, look, they do have their own city. Here you go. We'll even lift the fucking blockade, maybe, right? Go live there. Go, leave, go. I don't know. It's a backstab because he abandoned them with the Houthis and completely cucked them with Iran. Has he cucked them with Iran? I thought didn't Trump verbalize a commitment to bombing Iran if they actually were getting nuclear weapons? I don't know about the Houthi thing. The U.S. goes back and forth on that all the time. Jesus. He's just an actual fucking retard. It's impossible to know what his position is on anything.
Listen around social issues, and they're focused on who they think is better for the economy. And to have kind of one of our close friends' business basically just turned off like it was a tap. and threaten, a multi-generational business. I think that hits hard. I think that hits them at home.
He went behind Netanyahu's back to reopen negotiations on the nuclear deal. Oh, I wasn't aware of that. I didn't know that, if they did. But who knows if anything will even come of that. He also went behind Netanyahu's back. Remember, he did this as well with Hamas, I think, because I think Israel had said that they didn't want any direct talks with Hamas, and I think Trump just sent an envoy to go negotiate with them. But I don't even know if Trump knows what he's doing, or if he has any idea if he even knows that's a bad thing to do. I don't know.
The question I would have for you is, I want to move beyond the part of the program where we're screaming into TikTok about the corruption here and the obvious fraud or whatever you want to call it. Do you think
I have 7 more minutes of TikTok bits though? But that's fine. We can move on.
You ready for more indignance?
It's your show.
But I guess I want to move to the part of the program.
I hear this sound constantly. Am I going crazy? What are you talking about? Why do I hear your iPhone Siri or whatever sound on every stream multiple times a day? You're either having a schizophrenic moment or you've got something going on your computer, my dude.
How do the Democrats become the party of not fucking around?
Yeah, that recent hostage that got released was supposed to be the last American hostage too, and they didn't go through Israel at all for that or whatever. So
it's your show. But
I guess I want to move to the part of the program where how do the Democrats become the party of not fucking around? And this is my idea. I'm curious what you think. That we should draft legislation, the Foreign Enemies Act, Part 2, 2.0, that says if you're operating black sites in your country, El Salvador, if you're trying to bribe our public officials, Qatar, even if the president at that moment agrees with it, it doesn't mean you're not guilty of a crime or a violation of the Emoluments Act or whatever. And in 3 years and 9 months, we are going to implement significant economic sanctions and rethink our geopolitical relationship with you. And also,
wait, never mind. Lots of people saying hearing it. Maybe it might be one of the factorial sounds then. Is it that? I don't know.
Clear. In America, the White House and the branches of government or Congress tends to turn over. I don't think there's any shaming the Trump administration and his acolytes. So I'm about how do we start sending a chill down the backbone of some of these foreign governments and also some of the lower level people of these organizations that say, if you're illegally incarcerating people, whether the president or whether the current head of ICE says that is okay, it doesn't mean you're not committing a crime. I'm trying to figure out how we, quite frankly, move from the strongly worded letter to being a little bit more aggressive. Any ideas or thoughts?
I do. I have a couple thoughts on that. And I was literally just talking to Bill Kristol about just on the Qatari plane thing. Again, this is more of a strongly worded letter side of things, and I have additional thoughts on top of it. But I do think just at minimum, somebody in the House among the Democrats should try to force through a privilege resolution creating a vote on the new Air Force One. Like make the Republicans actually vote to codify this. You have a majority, right? Just say, look, if you guys want to take a $400 million bribe from the funder of Hamas, then put your money where your mouth is and vote for it. Because we're already seeing everybody from Ari Fleischer, who was Bush's spokesperson, who's been pro-Trump, to Laura Loomer, the insane MAGA conspiracy theorist, to the Free Press, which has been kind of anti-Trump, the Bari Weiss outfit. All of them are out this morning criticizing the Qatar plane thing today. So I would at least force these Republicans to actually have to codify it. That's one. The thing I liked about your El Salvador idea, legal is not my background, so I don't have a lot of deep thoughts on how you can scare people into feeling like they might go to jail, though I like where your head's at on that. Economically, though, I think it would make sense for Democratic leaders, either in or out of government right now, to be talking with the EU and Carney and the guy just got reelected in Australia, isolating El Salvador and saying that when we come back in charge, we'll isolate El Salvador too. We will turn you into Nicaragua or Venezuela if you want to. If you want to be completely isolated from the world community, I know you're very happy about this deal you've done with Donald Trump and his crime family, but they're not going to be around forever. And if you want the El Salvador economy to look like the North Korea, Nicaragua, or Venezuela economy, then keep going down this path of having, of violating, the Human Rights, Council and what they've already signed and agreed to. You cannot be part of the liberal, small L liberal world of nations if you are going to put somebody in a hole in a torture camp and not give them access to a lawyer. That's just that's a no-go. And we'll stop doing trade with you, and we'll stop doing tourism with you. And I think that would be. I think that it would be hard to actually impact the El Salvador economy in a big way without the U.S. being involved. But you could start to lay the groundwork down for it in a way that might make Bukele start to think twice.
Yeah, I think we've got to. Say to these folks, look, the president does not provide blanket immunity from economic sanctions or even criminality. Just to say, look, you're right. You're good for 3 years, 8 months, and 2 weeks. But after that, be clear. If the Democrats get control back, which there's always a good chance at some point they will, it's going to be really ugly for you. Because I think we're focused on. I think we've got to go after the infrastructure and the enablers and the co-conspirators at this point.
This is why it's so important, though, and I want to say it's like a flaw in our system. Maybe it's not fair to call it a flaw in our system, but between election seasons, there is no real party leader. We don't really have anybody that kind of represents the party. So there is nobody to if the rest of the world is looking into the United States, I think what the rest of the world wants to see is there a resistance? Is there a strong faction of Americans that don't stand for what your current leader stands that we can rely on if they get in government again? And you just don't really see that just because of the nature, I think, of how our election cycles work,
Opposed to, because it's just pretty clear we're not going to shame him or our current branches of government who have been weaponized and politicized. That's just not an effective strategy. So let's move on to the tariffs here. All right. So back in Washington, Fed Reserve Chair Chairman Powell warned that Trump's escalating trade war could drive the U.S. towards stagflation. It's probably a word you don't know because you're too young. You haven't had it since the 70s.
I read about it in the history.
You read about it?
Well, I mean, as a Reagan fan, as in high school Republicans, people talked about, how he ran against stagflation. So I'm familiar with it in that context.
So it's this toxic mix of rising prices and rising unemployment where basically interest rates go up and the economy slows down. And it's sort of stagflation is sort of a step or a bridge to a depression. But on Thursday, Trump announced a new...
It's a flaw of the system, but you could do it if you reorganize the way the party works, maybe. I think there's two issues. One is the position between Democrat and Republican right now is probably more extreme maybe than it ever has been in all of U.S. history. I mean, the positions maybe are even more different than they were preceding the Civil War. That might be the case. It's just for a variety of reasons we just don't want to kill each other right now over it. So there's that issue, and then there's also this weird issue of I feel like there is just such a gap in the media on the left between what the popular figures advocate for and where the party is. And that same gap does not exist on the right. And it just makes it so hard I just think it makes it very challenging for the Democratic Party to find its bearings. Like, what is the party? Is the party, well, if you look at the media, it seems like the party must be AOC and Bernie Sanders because they get the huge rallies. Everybody seems to be excited online for them. So maybe this is like where the soul of the party is. But then you look electorally and it's like, okay, wait, that's not where the party is at all. This is not the case. And then you look on the right and it's like Donald Trump will say a thing that a factory worker in Arkansas will know the talking points for like 5 minutes later because it's from the top down resonating with every single Republican, pundit, commentator, political figure, politician, podcaster, Twitter account, Russian bot, like every single person. And it's like, there's just such an incongruency on the left between our messaging and the politics. But on the right, all of their entertainment and messaging and politics, where I'm saying politics as acquiring political power, they seem to be in perfect alignment. We have to bring that alignment together. We have to bring things into alignment. Everything is doomed without that, I think.
Sort of stagflation is sort of a step or a bridge to a depression. But on Thursday, Trump announced a new trade framework with the UK that lowers tariffs, but only on luxury cars, including Rolls-Royce and Bentley. Well, thank God. Toys, including
plane engines, I think, got thrown in there, too.
Right?
Rolls-Royce has given us some plane engines, too.
Toys, including Barbie and Hot Wheels, will face a % tariff. Then over the weekend, there was a surprise detour. The U.S. and China agreed to a 90-day truce, temporarily rolling back some of the steep tariffs that had been hammering both economies. By May 14th, the U.S. will slash its tariff on Chinese goods from 145 to 30%, while China will lower its own tariffs on American products from 125% to just 10%. The move helped calm global markets, but it's anyone's guess if the pause will hold. They now have 90 days to make a deal. What do you think will come out of this? What's your impression of what's happened as of this morning, Tim?
I mean, I think for starters, like obviously Trump blinked and had very serious concerns about the economy. I mean, if you just look at the broad contours of this, so 30% tariff now on China is 20 percentage points higher than it was under Biden, right? So it was at 10 and now it's up to 30. And so we've added the 20% tax on consumers who consume Chinese goods in exchange for nothing, right? In exchange for nothing. I mean, the Chinese didn't even, there was some, I guess, promises around fentanyl or something, but they didn't. In the past, in the first Trump term when they did the tariffs with China, there was also a deal where they were buying our soybeans, and there are other and maybe that'll come over the next 90 days. I don't know, but as of right now, we still have increased. We still put a 20% essentially sales tax increase on Americans, for nothing, just so that Donnie could feel tough for a little bit. How does it go from here? I think that. I'd be interested in your take on, I noticed the markets are up quite a bit today. I just generally think, it's maybe my pessimistic nature, that the markets and business leaders have been a little bit too sanguine about kind of where we're heading. I think that this is going to be relatively ugly.
How can we win over the people on the extreme left? Are they even worth the effort? No, you should not be trying to appeal to these people. They do not share your values. These are not your people. You don't try to appeal to them. You just let them do their thing and then you do your thing. They're not relevant though. Remember, they're not even really your competition. They don't have a desire to secure political power. They're not trying to elect candidates or run people on any reasonable level or do things to organize or whatever. They're young. A lot of them are, which is fine. They can do that, but just don't get mind fucked into thinking that like these are the people you have to appeal to. It's just such a bad mindset to be in.
Like this move away from a total trade embargo on China has like walked us away from the brink of like a worst case scenario economically, at least temporarily. But even still, and if you would have went to any of these people in October and said, hey, I'm from May 2025, and here's what the economic outlook's going to look like then. We're going to have a 10% across the board tariff on everybody, 30% on China increased. The tax bill that you guys were counting on is going to be floundering in Congress, and we'll see what happens with that. But we haven't really made any meaningful progress of it yet on May. And GDP growth will be down to 0. I feel like everybody would think that was like, I feel like business people outside of politics would say that that's like almost a worst case imaginable scenario. And that's where we are now, but people are kind of spinning it as a positive because it ends up being better than what the worst case scenario was that we were staring down the pike of had they kept the 145% in. So I don't know. What do you make of that?
So he's pulled a knife out of the back, sort of halfway. That's the good news. The bad news is the injury is going to take, I think, decades to heal, because even worse than the tariffs themselves, which obviously increase consumer prices and slow the economy, I think the most lasting damage here is that we have now become the land or the economy of toxic uncertainty. And that is, people don't even know how to plan it.
The far left exists as a soft check for the center left to some degree to stop them becoming indistinguishable from the center right. No, but they shouldn't, because you should only be able to check people with things that are politically relevant. That's it. You shouldn't be able to check people with things that aren't politically relevant. If somebody comes out with an extremist movement of young children who become the pro-child rape party, I don't need them to check my party, right? I notice that your party is aggressively anti-child rape, and I think they should just take that back a little bit and make compromises with us. Now, if the aggressive pro-child rape party started to get candidates elected, okay, well, maybe something has to be looked at. But if they have no political power, then no, you don't compromise with them. People did not compromise on the right with I can't even think of politically irrelevant far-right movements. Like the Tea Party got people elected. They had the Freedom Caucus. They were disruptive. They were doing things in the House to actually fuck with votes and shit. Like the Freedom Caucus was a real thing, and they were doing stuff. These are the people that you negotiate with. You don't negotiate with or capitulate to or make concessions to people that have no political power. Because if they have no political power, what that means is there's nobody in the country that actually supports them in a political manner. Just people on YouTube.
And their businesses. And
yeah, nobody on the right is making concessions to never Trumpers because the never Trumpers have no political power. They're gone. They're gone immediately. Kicked out of the party and gone forever. Nobody even knows anything about them.
Or the economy of toxic uncertainty. And that is, people don't even know how to plan their businesses. And the U.S. S&P trades at a price earnings multiple of around 26, meaning for every dollar of profits that our great American companies generate, the world rewards us with $26 in value, which flows right into not only the pockets of shareholders, but employees. It lowers interest rates. We can borrow money at a much lower rate. The U.S. dollar is kind of the reserve currency because everybody wants to buy American stocks. So
wait, what?
Just with $26 in value, which flows for every dollar of profits that our great American companies generate. The world rewards us with $26 in value, which flows right into not only the pockets of shareholders, but employees. It lowers interest rates. We can borrow money at a much lower rate. The U.S. dollar is kind of the reserve currency because everybody wants to buy American stocks. So there's greater demand for dollars.
Oh. He's saying greater EPS and everything is helping American employees. I would say not really, but I guess in a very, very, very roundabout way. It helps everybody, I guess. But I don't think Scott's dumb enough to do like weird trickle down shit. So I'm assuming that's probably what it meant.
And the U.S. being the reserve currency globally literally lowers on average the interest rate that you pay across your student loans, your mortgages, and your car loans somewhere between 0.5% and 1%. So that's just literally hundreds of billions of dollars in cost savings that the Americans enjoy because of the fact that our markets trade at a higher multiple. What
is a caucus? I'm going to be honest, since I got for real into politics, I haven't actually studied or looked up caucuses or whatever. I'm going to give you what I think they are, but maybe I'm totally wrong. I think a caucus is basically just a collection of people that are all in a chamber of government, so in the House or the Senate. I think they're generally in the House, right? Are there caucuses in the Senate? There must be. But it's like a group of 10, 20 people or whatever, or some number of people who are like, hey, we all tend to vote together on these issues. That'll be like a caucus. So like there's a progressive caucus in the House, but it's not like super ultra uber progressive. It's like just like I think far left social people, but not, there's it's a ton of people in that caucus, right? Or there used to be like the Congressional Black Caucus or the Tea Party, or the Freedom Caucus was a caucus. It's just like a group of people. The Gang of Eight arguably was a small caucus, I think. It's just a group of people who are all like, hey, we should we all vote together on like certain issues. I think basically an informal agreement to do it, kind of. I think.
Literally hundreds of billions of dollars in.
They get allotted resources if they are officially recognized. What do you mean by that? Allotted resources? I don't know what that means.
Just in your car loans, somewhere between 0.5% and 1%. So that's just literally hundreds of billions of dollars in cost savings that the Americans enjoy because of the fact that our markets trade at a higher multiple on earnings. Now, why do they trade at a higher multiple? A lot of reasons. We're more risk aggressive. Our technology is better. We have more
staff and
more
researchers.
Zeitgeist or a culture of entrepreneurship. We have great universities, great intellectual property. But we also have rule of law and consistency. We're seen as good trading partners. We're seen as people we can count on. We're seen as a place where there isn't going to be a ton of corruption where you come and say, open a bunch of restaurants, and then the government shows up one day and says, sorry, we now own them. And that happens in other countries around the world. Rule of law and consistency have been thrown out the window in just 110 days. And you're starting to see a reduction in the price earnings multiple. And I believe over the next several years, we're going to see a re-rating down of our price earnings multiple, which effectively increases the costs on all American businesses and consumers. Because, and the market has sort of said this to a certain extent, the market has said, we don't really know what this guy's going to do and we don't trust him. 145% tariff. I mean, this is what a bad negotiator is. The first thing we need to do is dispel the myth that this guy's a good business person. He would be wealthier if he'd taken his massive inheritance and invested it in index funds. His business career includes a trail of bankruptcies and unpaid subcontractors. He is an outstanding, to be fair, he's an outstanding reality talk show host, made several $100 million hosting and envisioning a reality talk show. As a business person, he's not very good. And in terms of negotiating, he's negotiating himself at this point. He put on 145% tariff, and then a few days later, without any counter from the Chinese, other than this is unacceptable and we're not even going to talk, he said they're unsustainable. It's like, well, boss, you're the one that did it. So to go to 145 and then to go down to 30, and effectively what you have is the Chinese are divesting away. This will keep the factories sort of humming in China. This will basically loosen up or cancel the trade embargo for the time being. But also negotiation, you have to understand your leverage and the amount of leverage you have. And what is typical of America and Donald Trump, we're under the...
Dean is scared of destiny. Listen, if Dean wants to chat publicly about anything, I'm okay to do it. I don't, like I said this before, obviously my community had a very harsh response, probably somewhat informed by my coverage or whatever, which is fair. But listen, I'm not here to scream or shout or tear anybody down. Okay. I just feel like there are better ways that they can handle and deal with dealing with pushback. It's a whole ass conversation.
The impression we're much more powerful than we are. People think of us as, we're the only customer at the taco stand here, and that without us, they go out of business. We're the third largest trading partner. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations and the EU are bigger trading partners with China. China has been divesting away from us, and I think this is good for them. They get to continue to sell not as many products, but still not the shock that this trade embargo was going to implement on them. At the same time, they will slowly but surely continue to divest away from us. And that is what the whole world is doing, Tim. The whole world is rerouting their supply chain around the United States, not even because of tariffs, but because they don't know how to plan their business with us, because of this toxic uncertainty. And I think that resupplying or that rerouting of the supply chain will take years, if not decades, to reheal. And I do think the Americans have taken for granted, the American public, of just how inexpensive our goods are because of the supply chain that runs through the U.S. of every major economy, because they trust us and think there's rule of law. And those things are no longer a given with us. The scariest stat I've seen, organization did a poll of global citizens, took a statistically significant sampling. And for the first time in history, more people around the world think that China is a greater force for good in the world than the U.S., which says to me people are much more inclined to do business with China than they are with the U.S. And as someone who has run businesses, I've run businesses my whole life. They've always been global businesses because they've been strategy and brand firms. When I walk into meet with LVMH or Samsung, Tata Motors, we're taken seriously. And also when they do business with us, they want to do business with us. If I'd started a brand strategy firm in Pakistan or even in Thailand, they're just less inclined to do business with you because they don't know you. They don't trust you as much. They don't think you're as innovative. They probably don't think your employees are as good. They're not as confident you're going to uphold your side of a legal contract. The legal contracts aren't as easily, agreed to because they're not as consistent with the kind of American or Western law. Yeah. All of that we have had massive benefit from. And I don't think American consumers realize how much they benefited from that. And they're going to realize it when everything just gets a little bit more difficult. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree with most of that. I'll defer to your expertise on the economy side of things, so I concur with it. I just like putting on my former Republican hat, just on like the China hawk side of it. So I remember we used to have kind of a Republican Party that was strong against communism, and that felt like wanted to use more of a Reaganite policy in great power struggles. Like we've seen these guys.
Dean did not have a better Jubilee performance in Destiny. I feel like it's really hard to compare our Jubilee performances, just because I'm not saying that one did like better or worse, but just because mine was so fucking unhinged. I don't know if that's normal. I feel like mine had an ungodly amount of like bizarro personal attacks. It was a lot of kind of wacky shit, I would say, but whatever.
Basically fold in the face of China. And I just think broadly, more geopolitically, think about the advantages China has gained over the past 5 months. I mean, in addition to the stuff you just laid out, the fact that we've totally gutted USAID and we've eliminated any soft power we have throughout the world and created a huge opportunity for China to fill that void. Nice. To your point on the economic trading partner side of things, I think that if you are one of those Asian countries like Thailand that you just mentioned, like, I mean, don't you feel like you can trust China a little bit more as a trading partner than you could have 5 months ago, for sure? Then you look at the policy side of things, talk about leverage and weakness. I mean, we completely fold on the Liberation Day tariffs. Meanwhile, we also completely fold when it comes to TikTok, right? And like the U.S. government puts into law a TikTok ban, but Donald Trump and this administration won't enforce it because they're afraid of the backlash.
Nah, well, kind of. I think that what happened was Trump saw, I mean, I don't have to guess because Trump just literally blatantly said it. Trump saw that he had way more support on TikTok than he initially thought he would. And then because of that, he ends up keeping TikTok. That's it. It's as simple as that.
From the American population. So like China's been so successful in infiltrating American culture through TikTok that and the power of that is so great that like the U.S. government is scared. Let's just be honest, scared to like enforce its own laws when it comes to banning TikTok. China State TV this morning, I saw this. They put this out. The outcome of trade talks with Trump team shows China's firm countermeasures and resolute stance have been highly effective. China gets nearly all tariffs off for doing very little other than agreeing to talk. That's their spin this morning. So I just think across every metric, we have made China stronger over the past 5 months in ways that, as you say, are going to be hard to unravel.
Yep.
And there isn't really any evidence that we are trying to like win a great power struggle with them. And I guess I'd add just the last thing I'd say on it is, if you're China, it's hard for me to get inside the head of Xi Jinping, and I don't know what their plans are with regards to Taiwan or their timing, but I just do not think they could look at.
It's like having Trump is like a stupid Hitler. It's, you know what? You know who Trump is? It's like this.
Oh, you blind bloody fool! You can't insult me! We've had vicious kings, and we've had idiot kings, but I don't know if we've ever been cursed with a vicious idiot. You can't!
A vicious idiot. He's not even smart.
At America right now and think that we would put up any real resistance to their efforts to overtake Taiwan if they want.
Okay, I don't know how many times I have to say this, but I will say this one more time, I guess. And by one more time, I mean probably a million times. So Gamer Girl Feet in DGG chat says, Drolin, well, I'm not saying you're ignorant, my friend. I'm simply voicing my view on punching left, when the majority of people who lean left are not the cringy caricatures that the right and people like Destiny try to paint. Like one of my favorites is Roland Martin. I've never in my entire life said, and I don't believe that anybody who's listening to me gets the impression that I've said that everybody who leans left, or everybody who's further left than me is cringy. I'm like very obviously and very explicitly talking about the crazy left-leaning people or leftists on like TikTok and shit who are literally anti-electoral politics. I think everybody understands that when I say that. I've said that a billion times. I literally said I think AOC is like a shining star in the Democratic Party, probably one of my favorite Democratic politicians right now. I'm pretty sure she is significantly to the left of me on a lot of things.
Right now and think that we would put up any real resistance to their efforts to overtake Taiwan if they wanted to do it, based on how we've acted with regards to Ukraine, how we've acted with regards to this trade war. So I just think that we've weakened ourselves pretty noticeably across a variety of different metrics vis-a-vis China.
Yeah, I think the short-term winner is Europe, because China wants to keep these factories humming, so they'll have a lot of excess supply that they'll be willing to sell at a discounted rate. And I think the EU is about to get a massive amount kind of for sale on a ton of products. The medium and the long-term winner, I actually think, I agree with you, is China. I know firsthand their commerce executives and business people are roaming around Europe and Latin America saying, hey, you may not like us, but you can trust us. We do what we say we're going to do. And I was actually at dinner with the CEO of one of the largest companies in China. And he said, yeah, for the first time, we're talking to European companies about providing cloud services. And the general reaction was always, we don't trust China to store our data in the Chinese cloud. And now the question is, okay, we don't trust you, but we don't necessarily trust American companies now either. So this is not only
Elon Musk Starlink. Like they're like, are we going to trust Elon Musk with the internet access? I think that there are going to be some countries that are going to look at that both ways now. Some will want to do that deal because they feel like it might be a way to get good favor with the Trump administration. But I think others are going to feel about that the way they might have felt about China a couple of years ago.
We also have to do a better job as Democrats. I think of who has been good at pushing back on autocrats. And I learned this. I did an interview with Anne Applebaum, and she said, if you take Alexander Navalny as an example of someone who was able to push back on an emerging kleptocracy or an autocrat, it was because he was able to connect it to people's lives, that he had this sort of motto when he was running against Putin that, okay, they're getting rich and there's still potholes in Moscow. And Elizabeth Warren, or Senator Warren, kind of summarized it nicely by saying, they're getting rich and you're getting your health care taken away. And I don't think we've done a really good job of explaining to the American people that a kleptocracy creates a small number of very rich people, whether it's the people who are tipped off to the launch of the Trump coin the Friday night before inauguration, small number of wallets, like 30 wallets, made $800 million, thing spikes, they dump the bag, and then over the course of the next several weeks, 800,000 smaller investors lost billions. And we haven't done a good enough job connecting that, okay, when Elon Musk, as part of our negotiation with UK around tariffs, gets a Starlink deal, that means every other American tech company, every other small business, and by the way, 98% of the companies that make their living from importing and exporting in the United States are small and medium-sized businesses who create 2/3 of the jobs in America, but don't have lobbyists, and they don't have enough money to get on Trump's lunch calendar or be part of Eric's executive $500,000 a year kind of fraternity, if you will. Those are the people that get hurt the most. And I don't think we as Democrats have done a good enough job connecting the dots there, or that say, look, kleptocracy is a small tax and then a medium tax on everyone, such that we can funnel a massive amount of money to a small number of people. All right, let's move on here.
To the music segment?
Stay with us. Support for the show comes from Shopify. It's no small thing to start a business. I remember when I was starting out, and could use Shopify, could use some infrastructure, could use some help. Anyways,
Okay, we're listening to the
Welcome back. On the immigration front, a federal judge has blocked.
Gamer girl with no feet would be even more goated. What was that? Wasn't there a fucking was this actually a hentai game, or was it? Or did people just say that? Kataru Shouju? What am I thinking of? Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Katawa Shouju? Is that what it was called? Did I actually get that, or are you making fun of how I pronounce it? Katawa Shouju. Oh my god! It's because I was a huge fan of that game. Okay, was that game actually like a hentai visual novel, or did people just end up drawing a bunch of like porn about it?
What may be one of the Trump administration's most extreme efforts yet, the planned deportation of detainees to Libya. ISIS detained Asian nationals in Texas and allegedly pressured them to voluntarily agree to be transferred to prisons controlled by armed militia in eastern Libya, despite widespread reports of torture and human rights abuses in those facilities. At the same time, Trump is touting a 95% drop in illegal crossings at the U.S.-Mexico border compared to last year. Tim, is this a fear tactic designed to intimidate future migrants into staying away or self-deporting? What do you think is going on here?
There definitely is a desire to try to intimidate people into self-deporting, and they're actively doing this. They're running ads calling on people to self-deport right now throughout the country. So there is that.
Kind of weird.
I think there is a little bit of a sadism to the Stephen Miller wing of the Trump administration. I think some of them like the idea of doing these kind of outlandish types of deportation plans because A, it's intimidating. B, I think they get some kind of pleasure out of it, maybe erotic pleasure, I don't know, but it's hard to keep track of all this stuff. But the Libya thing is the latest. There's another story, I guess a week or two ago, of a guy, Omar Amin, who got deported to Rwanda. He was from Iraq and had been pretty thinly, and I think quite clearly falsely, accused of being part of ISIS when he was in Iraq. He'd then come to America, brought his whole family here, went through the refugee vetting process, was living in Sacramento, was working, did not have any crimes in America, but he was accused. There was some cable where he was on a list of people that were ISIS members. Him and his lawyer says that's false. Anyway, he gets jailed during the first Trump administration, has been jailed since then, and we just sent him to Rwanda, where he's not from. And we have there's another situation I was just reading this morning in New York with these two guys who are 19 and 20, who graduated high school, were from El Salvador. Their parents brought them here when they were kids. They hadn't broken any laws, were good students, spoke English, and they went to their immigration checkup, but they ended up getting shackled, sent to Louisiana, and now are about to be sent back to El Salvador, where they don't remember or know anybody in El Salvador. So like all of this, is part of the broader effort to, yes, intimidate, and to send a signal to the world that people aren't welcome here anymore. And that's what they want, right? I mean, look, the only people they're going to welcome into this country are white Afrikaners from South Africa. I don't think you've got to,
you see, we got our first 43 Afrikaners here in the poor refugees from South Africa. My disposition is that the South African white genocide shit is all fake, but that's just because the people who promoted it were people that I didn't trust at all when it came to reporting on racial issues. So it might actually be a big deal, and I'm just biased. I'm not saying that tongue in cheek. It could be that maybe there is some really fuck shit going on there, but I feel like there was a day or two that I spent trying to dig through it where people were saying that people were the victims of like racial killings, like black people were trying to get vengeance on white people would kill them, and then I feel like when I looked into it, they just looked like robberies. But then other people were saying, well, no, they're targeted robberies of white people, and it's like maybe, I don't know.
Read between the lines too much on that, and it's outrageous. And I think that part of the stuff, to your point, the last thing about Democrats, I think that the more Democrats can just speak, whether it's about the economy or whether it's about this stuff, in normal language and focus on things that people understand. People really don't want kids that were brought here when they were 4 to be sent back to El Salvador. Like, that is not a popular policy. They don't want people to be grabbed off the street by masked agents and sent to a prison camp in El Salvador or a prison camp in Libya. Like, those are not popular things. And I think that you can talk about those things in regular language that speak to American values while also not going down crazy lefty open borders like territory. And I think that it's important to be able to do both.
Yeah, I'm of two minds on this. The first is this is still his most popular policy. And there's just no getting around it. I feel like a lot of this was the Democrats sticking their chin out and just waiting to get tagged hard. 250,000 people crossed the border in December of 23. We were just sort of asking for it. And then they see, okay, them getting Trump, or Biden-Harris hats and free phone cards and hotel rooms, and Americans saying, okay, there's something wrong here. But I've never understood about this whole argument, or where I feel Americans fail to see what's going on, is that immigration is obviously the secret sauce of America, but I've always thought, I'm kind of where Friedman was on this, and that is the most profitable part of immigration is illegal immigration. because they're essentially the most flexible, inexpensive workforce in history. When there's crops to be picked or old people to be taken care of or dishes to be washed, and we can't afford or find domestic workers, the reason why it's fairly inexpensive to eat out is because of illegal immigration. Some cities, somewhere between 15 and 25% of fast food workers are undocumented workers. And in addition, they generate a surplus of $100 billion in the Social Security program because most of them are younger and they don't stick around for Social Security. They pay their taxes and then they go back. A mass deportation effort, some estimates put at 4 to 7% loss or reduction in GDP.
I kind of bring this up every now and then, but it feels like a lost cause because it's so anti-intuitive or unintuitive. And I know that when I bring it up, I'm literally the only time in a lot of people's lives that they have ever heard this argument given ever. So it just feels like I'm doing like some libcuck apologia. But illegal immigrants are a fiscal boon to the United States. Fiscal meaning when it comes to state or government budgets, they have a propensity to not consume too much healthcare or other types of welfare programs because you have to fake a lot of documentation to get there. And it's just very hard to collect any of those programs. But if you do steal a Social Security number or steal some kind of like welfare number, it's easy to just collect a legit paycheck and pay taxes into that system. But it's hard to get money out of it. Cato Institute, I think, does the most research on this, but most research, I've never seen anything that contradicts this. Illegal immigrants tend to be quite the fiscal boon. And then if you don't like them or if they get caught with a crime, you want to just like kick them out. So it's like very, very easy, very good in a sadistic sense kind of for your budgets, but nobody is.
And also they're 90% of the undocumented population is working age. About a third of agricultural workers, a quarter of ground maintenance workers, and about a quarter of all food service workers are undocumented. So I mean, your prices are going to go up, folks. And there's this trope, and there are some very bad people. I do not believe in open borders. I believe you have to have a country. The question I would have for you, because I don't feel as if I'm very knowledgeable, I have deep domain expertise around immigration, is that we want to demonize immigrants. But wouldn't the fastest way to solve this problem to go to the demand side, and that is say to Chipotle or lawn care companies, we're doing random audits, and based on the percentage of people who are clearly undocumented, we're going to find you $10,000 a day. Because they don't come here to rape to rape. These immigrants don't come here to commit crimes or to start gang warfare. They come here for jobs. And if you went on the demand side and basically hit those nice American people with real fines, such that they started implementing, and they could do this with biometrics or just simple documentation, verification. If there's no jobs, if it's like, okay, I'm sorry, I can't hire you, they melt back to where they came from. But we don't want to do that, do we?
No. Yeah, two thoughts on this. One is, and I think that it reveals a lot about why they're targeting, who they're targeting, what the motivations are. This administration doesn't want to go after business owners directly, right? I mean, if they get hurt by the tariffs because Trump's obsessed with tariffs, that's one thing, but they're not trying to make enemies of people that they think voted for them or possibly voted for them, small business owners. Plus, on top of that, Donald Trump is an employer of illegal immigrants who worked at his hotels and golf courses, which he knows. So they don't have any interest in doing that. You're exactly right. They could. There's e-verification. I mean, this has been something that like border hawks, immigration hawks have been proposing ever since I've been in politics. In fact, many of the candidates I worked for supported that as it was something that's on your policy agenda in the campaign, but then you don't actually put into place in government e-verify because you don't want to actually punish the small business owners that are likely Republican voters. So what they're doing now is they feel like low risk, right? Like who? There are probably some working class Hispanic voters that moved over to Trump. They're starting to have maybe a change of heart because they had a cousin or a friend or something who is not a criminal, who's been deported, or they know somebody who has. So there's going to be a little bit of a risk there. But broadly speaking, if you take an 18 and 19-year-old El Salvador, kid that was brought here that can't vote, was brought here illegally by their parents, and you send them back.
You can argue against the right about illegal immigrants. They say, oh, you like slave labor. That's why you want them here. I mean, if they buy into that premise, then you can very easily. The thing is to just get people off of the dumb arguments. Like conservatives will try to do this thing where they're like, oh, well, we don't like them because they're fiscal drains. Like, bullshit. That has nothing to do with any of this. You don't stop. When will conservatives lose the right in U.S. politics? When will they lose the right to complain about the budget? Like conservatives have underperformed Democrats on fiscal stuff for like the last 30 years, since a lot of people here have even been alive. Can we stop giving conservatives credit about giving a fuck about the budget or about the government spending or anything? Because you clearly don't give a fuck, or it doesn't show ever.
Back to El Salvador, you're not paying a political price for that in any meaningful way, and it is immoral. It's an affront to what the country is supposed to be about, and it's an affront to the very American ethos of people wanting to come here and have an opportunity, but you're not paying a political price there. There's obviously some racial elements to it, as referenced earlier with the white Afrikaners, but it's also just they feel like it's much more politically palatable to go after 18 and 19-year-old kids that would have been dreamers or whatever than it is to go after American business owners. And just one really quick thing on the economy. I agree. This all takes time. Like this is going to happen now. But just adding on to what we talked about earlier with tariffs, Okay, you add onto that, we're deporting a bunch of people that are working, doing cheap work. We're not bringing in nearly as many people as we were. So the shutting down of the border is good in that it's shutting down some of the fentanyl traffic and some of the gang labor, but it's also shutting down people that were coming here to work. And then on top of that, we're firing a lot of people in the federal workforce or putting them on the sidelines. They're probably going to end up getting paid anyway, so we're going to be paying them to do nothing while that goes to the courts. And it's harder for recent college grads to get jobs, in a lot of these areas because people don't know what's going to be happening with the government. I just think that there are a lot of economic factors there that are.
What does the budget have to do with slave labor? Well, nothing, but conservatives don't give a fuck about slave labor. They don't care about any of these moral issues for immigrants. It's some other shit that they care about. That's it. But get them off the weird budget talk because they clearly don't give a fuck about it, and then have a more honest conversation.
Pointing to a pretty bad situation, once it all, starts to hum through the economy.
Let me put forward a thesis and I want to get your response to it. So I have a 17-year-old son, and there's been reports and verification of actual people aren't criminals, people who were brought here, grew up here, being deported, some ending up in these hellscapes prisons, and also reports of U.S. citizens. And my view is, unfortunately, that a lot of Democrats who are very wealthy clutch their pearls and say at dinner parties how outraged they are, but they don't really do a fucking thing about it. Because there's this emerging what I'll call transnational oligarchy, togarchs. And that's, if you're in the 1%, you have a disproportionate amount of power. And without you, it's very hard to get anything done without your support. And so it's easy to complain about it at dinner parties. But the reality is in America that your rights have become a function of your wealth. My kid is not going to be sequestered by ICE and sent to El Salvador. There's just zero chance that could happen. I will not be silenced because I have the money to lawyer up. Anyone in my life that becomes pregnant, I don't care if I'm in deepest, reddest Mississippi, I can get access to family planning because I have money. And if shit really gets real, and on the, quite frankly, just the unlikely chance we start rounding up Jews and I get on the wrong list, well before that, I have the money to piece out to Milan or Dubai.
Yeah.
And what that creates is this lack of incentive or this divesting of the most powerful's interest in America. And that is, whereas before, I think the really wealthy thought, I'm going to stay here. If this could happen to them, it could happen to us. But now there's a feeling amongst me, well, I was turning this back to me, but among the real...
I really liked the, somebody made a tweet. Do I like it or is it just sad? Does anybody have a link to somebody just made a tweet and it was like, the year is 2014. Barack Obama accepts a $500 million plane from some country. He tells you that he absolutely won't use this or it's not going to influence his opinions or foreign policy. And it's just like, even just like reading it, like I can already see the conservative brains exploding. Like just reading that tweet and imagining what it would have been like. Was it the Onion guy that, the Onion tweet, fuck. Is his name Tim Onion? Somebody just typed that in. Oh, maybe it was on a Blue Sky. But it's 2015. President Barack Obama has accepted a Sky Palace jumbo jet from the Qatari government, which he'll own after he leaves office. Everybody relax, he says in an interview with the New York Times. Everyone does. The networks then televised the military parade in his honor on his birthday. It's just like... I still need to find out if Trump can actually keep this jet.
Happen to them, it could happen.
I still don't know
to
the answer to that.
Us. But now there's a feeling amongst me, well, I was turning this back to me, but among the really wealthy, they were insulated from some of this, that it really doesn't impact us. So we have our own schools, we have our own security, we have our own healthcare, we have our own legal rights. We're protected by the law, but we're not bound by it. And it creates this really unhealthy ecosystem where the most powerful in our nation, even who claim to have progressive values, really don't feel that same sense of vested interest in the maintenance and fidelity to American values. Because at the end of the day, we're kind of global citizens. And our governance is the dollar, or basically how much money we have. And we can find those rights somewhere else, even if they're violated here. Your thoughts?
I think that there's some of that. Look, you're always going to paint with a broad brush in these sort of situations. Like there are certainly rich liberals that are out there doing what they can, and others that are, feel like how you did. And I hear from Bulwark listeners, like upper middle class people that have come up to me and say that they're thinking of leaving. Like I had a woman just over the weekend that was like, I'm thinking about moving to Australia.
Wait.
Husband is a citizen or something, and I was like, don't leave, I'm not going anywhere. You're fine here. You actually, because of what you just laid out, Scott, like if you're a citizen of this country that has enough money for a lawyer, like you're in pretty good shape right now. We'll see how things look when Donald Trump is deteriorating at age 81 in 2027. Maybe my assessment will change on that, but as of right now, you're fine and you should be staying here and should be fighting. So I think there's a little bit of that. I also think the Democratic Party, and this is going to go against my policy preferences is probably, but I think that from a political standpoint this is important. Like, the Democratic Party has not done a particularly great job of recruiting people that are from the working class, that are from the non-globalist parts of America to be spokespersons for the party. A lot of times those people are probably going to be they're probably going to have different views from me on social and economic issues, right? Like I'm kind of a fiscally conservative, socially liberal, whatever cliche. Like the Democrats should probably be recruiting people that are more fiscally left than me and have some maybe contrarian social views, because that is like the most popular combination of political views for working class people.
Seeing everybody go crazy, or should I say go crazy? Maybe I'm exaggerating a bit, but seeing everybody getting ass pained about Gavin Newsom's take on trans athletes, it's like, guys, come on. We need to do better than this.
And I think the Democrats have done a lot of recruiting of people that like are maybe from somewhere in America and then were the valedictorian and then went to a fancy school and then worked at McKinsey and then went back to where they came from, or, and nothing against any of those people. But they're going to have a set of views that are closer to what you just lined out, that have a more of a globalist kind of mindset. And I do think it would help the Democrats to have people that like authentically sound like they are from the communities that are going to be hurt by this.
Represent.
Yeah.
It shocked me a couple of days ago. There was a new poll showing that if the election were held again today, that Harris would still lose, or that Trump would win.
Who would be doing a better job?
Really, though? Who would be doing a better job as president among registered voters who said they voted in 2024?
Job as president. Guess who comes out on top? Within the margin of error, comes on top. This is a lot like the election result, right? Trump 45%, 2 points ahead of Harris at 43%. 12% say they'd be doing about the same. But this is the key nugget here. It's not just about regretting that vote. It's literally saying who would be doing the better job.
I think you should look at this as a poll. This is a poll. For the election, it would come down to, like, you'd have to start going through the individual states to figure out who would actually win the election again, right? It's hard to say if that would come out the same way or not.
Right now, and Trump continues to score a higher percentage of the vote than Kamala Harris.
Yeah, my sense
I'm
is,
shocked by that.
I was shocked by that, especially when you see the swing among young people. But I mean, it is what it is. And as unpopular as Trump is, the Democratic Party is less popular. And I think as we sit, again, crying into TikTok, the reality is the analogy I used to use was that the Panzer tanks come rolling into Poland and we're fighting Democrats. As Democrats were fighting them on horseback. And then someone reminded me, actually, that was a successful military operation. I should stop disparaging the heroes of the Polish army in World War II. So but my point is, the only thing that feels more corrupt in the Trump administration, or kind of coarse and cruel right now, is just how weak the Democratic Party is.
Yeah, well, it's not more corrupt, but it's sadder.
No,
it has more
weak.
Impact. Yeah, more weak for sure.
Well, isn't America basically saying they'd rather have a corrupt autocrat than a weak Democratic Party?
A lot of Americans are. And here's the problem. This goes to your screaming the TikTok thing, which I do a lot. So I'll defend it. I'll defend the honor of it. But I do think it has its limitations, which is this. Like, and this way, I bet you get pushback sometimes from people when you say this, because there's like a decent, like there's a not nothing, there's 40% of the country, maybe 33% of the country who are super engaged in politics, are decently well off, middle class to upper middle class, went to college, read the news, listen to podcasts or watch, cable or read the newspaper or read magazine, whatever, engaged, know who their representative is, and are mad about what's happening, are legitimately mad about it, and are trying to figure out what to do about it. And the good news for Democrats is those people show up in these special elections and local elections. That's why Democrats are trying to do better in those than in the national elections. The problem is there's just another huge part of the country that are less informed. And I don't really even say that as a pejorative. It's just super like they don't engage in political news. Maybe for some of them it's because they're working too damn hard and don't have time. Maybe for others because they'd rather play video games for 8 hours a day. But either way, like that is happening. And the Democrats.
What should the Democrats do right now then? It sounds memey, but I don't know. I feel like it's an apt analysis of the political environment. Democrats should literally look to YouTubers. They should look to the influencer model to figure out how to do politics, because right now, at least in the United States, politics is basically done on like an influencer thing. So how do you capture people's attention? How do you get it so that people like enjoy listening to your political figures? Basically tap into the kind of energy that people like AOC and Bernie have, but make that message more palatable to like the wider constituency that you're trying to appeal to, basically.
Democrats have like to that demographic, the Democrats feel very weak and they feel very disconnected and out of touch and not fighting for them. And it is just an absolute necessity that Democrats figure out how to find a voice that can connect with people that don't read the New York Times. And part of that, I think, is, as I just mentioned in the last answer, is like recruiting people, not who play video games 8 hours a day, but who like look and sound and feel more like folks that are not part of that class of the 1/3 of the country that's super engaged.
Well, let me ask you that. Right now, if you had to say who are the leaders of the Democratic Party, you would point to Minority Leader Jeffries and Senate Minority Leader Schumer. And I'm a fan of Leader Jeffries. I don't think he's the leader we need right now. And I think Senator Schumer is a disaster. Who do you think, in your view, who are some of those emerging voters? Everyone keeps saying we have such a strong bench, and then they point to Westmore, and the list runs shallow.
Also, keep in mind too that like they're having this conversation. Keep in mind, Republicans struggled for probably like a year or two. Republicans were struggling after the election in 2020. Right? Remember, we saw all these people who were freaking out, trying to figure out, well, who's going to lead us? And it's got to be DeSantis. It's got to be DeSantis. And then Nikki Haley kind of comes out and, oh, maybe she can do it. Maybe it'll be Nikki Haley. Like, Republicans had these same issues as well. But then when people realized Oh shit. Okay, well, looks like people still like Trump, I guess. So Trump it is. Then eventually Trump became the guy again, you know?
Hello. Who do you see as potentially, and then everyone's getting excited about John Fetterman, and there's all these stories coming out saying that he's struggling. Who do you see as kind of the up and coming draft choices in the Democratic Party?
Well, I am on the weak bench side of this. Me and Carville argue about this. Carville feels very like the bench is really good. I don't really think so. But I do like Westmore. I think that you've seen like the AOC and Bernie are actually channeling something. I don't. Obviously, Bernie's really old.
Let me just push a pause there. My thesis is they're great. They're inspiring. There's no fucking way America's going to elect either of them.
Yeah, it was funny. I was at a panel, and this is part of like getting again outside of these pockets of.
Republicans are praying that Bernie or AOC are the nominee.
I was on a panel here in Louisiana, and I got the same question. I was giving the same answer I'm giving right now, and then I mentioned AOC, and a guy who I know, who's an older guy, who's a Democrat, Louisiana Democrat, came up to me, and he's like, my party is more insane than I even thought it was if they think that AOC can win this country. It's just like people that are outside of certain worlds just don't see things differently. That said, they've showed leadership, and I just wanted to mention it.
They're inspiring.
Yeah. If this is May, it's May 12th, 2025. If you took us to May 12th, 2013, and said Donald Trump is going to be the Republican Party leader, everybody'd say you're insane. If you took us to May 12th, 2005, and said that Barack Hussein Obama is going to be the Democratic Party leader, everybody said you'd be insane.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times people have limits on their imaginations. Yeah. And I think that you look at like the two examples I've come up with, they're just totally different. Neither of these guys are going to be the leader of the Democratic Party, but Dan Osborne ran for Senate in Nebraska, way overperformed as kind of a working class, socially conservative, fiscally liberal guy. And like Democrats should recruit guys like that during the midterms. Mark Cuban is like the inverse of him. There's like a business guy. And you could tell me that like either of those types of people could be the Democratic nominee in 3 years, and I would believe you. And so I don't know. I like Westmore fine. I like Josh Shapiro fine. I mean, there are other Pete. I hate, I think that I don't compete like as a 7-language speaking grad who worked at McKinsey, really like reached the working class people I've been talking about. I don't know, but he did pretty damn well on that Bro podcast, that Andrew Schultz podcast the other day. So maybe he can do better than I think. So there are people out there, but it's going to take real work. Scott Galloway, if he didn't live in London, might be an example.
Yeah, that shows just how desperate we are. Well, let me ask you this, just so we can fill the cup.
Wait, does Scott live in London? Is he not in the U.S.?
Comment section up with people calling me names.
Okay.
I think America is ready for a gay president. I don't know if the Democratic Party is. I think the way the Democratic primaries are held, that there's certain elements of the Democratic Party that would have an issue with Secretary Buttigieg as evidenced by his poor performance. Thank you.
What did you say?
The Democratic Party that would have an issue with Secretary Buttigieg as evidenced by his poor performance.
Okay, yeah. I don't know why Scott didn't just say it. I feel like Scott's not a very politically correct guy, but okay, tell me about it. Yeah, is it Super Tuesday? Is where your huge firewall of southern states are? That'd be a hard one.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a truth. Like, so I'm just gonna say this. Like, I have plenty of friends at the Pete campaign, and like Pete had some of his own issues with black voters in South Bend that may be totally unrelated.
Hot take, and I might be extrapolating too much from my experience maybe with women or something. I don't know. When people say they have issues with gay people, including black people saying this or whatever, I don't know if that's actually true, that they have huge issues with gay men, or if it's that they have huge issues with highly effeminate gay men. Like if you had a person who was like Pete is pretty ordinary and he was like, oh, he's also gay, I don't know if that would present the same problem, although it's hard to know without actually testing it, but...
They did the gay issues, but like they did focus groups with black voters, and in all those focus groups, there were some black voters that weren't cool with it. And that's just a fact. It's just reality. There are plenty of there are more white people that hate gays than black. You know what I mean? So I'm not like trying to make it a racial thing. That's just kind of a fact, and that would be a challenge for him. Is that going to be still the true in 3 years? I don't know. Is it something about Pete himself? Again, like Carville's line is always like the person that wins the Democratic primary is the one that can win the black church. And is like I could maybe imagine a gay candidate that would be able to do better in a black church than Pete. It's just like, is that like his natural space? Like probably not. But maybe so. By the way, I don't know. Like maybe he could really surprise and prove himself. I didn't think he'd do that well in that podcast. Pete has surprised at every turn. So I don't know. I think that broadly speaking, even outside of black voters, Democrats are like, what's the fucking old saying? Twice bit, thrice bits, once whatever. Just about. I think that they'll probably want to go for a straight white guy, or a straight black guy, just because like after the Hillary and Kamala experience, I think that a lot of Democrats are just to be freaked out about nominating somebody. And I don't know if that's true or right. I think there are other issues there, but right. I do think that there will be some of that.
Yeah, I think the Democratic Party at this point is like, okay, we absolutely need a female president, and we will have a female president. She'll be a Republican who has a reputation.
Is that just the one of the good ones argument? The ones racists use to prove they aren't racist because they have a black friend? No, I think it's because the ultra effeminate gay trope. I think that personality style, I just think is very annoying. I think I don't like those types of people. But that's not like a huge. Why do I have to say it's not because I'm homophobic? It's nothing to do with it. I just think that personality style is kind of annoying to a lot of people.
for likely drone striking your entire family if you run a stop sign. That's who's going to be the first female president.
Christy, no, she'll have a whole new face, and she'll have murdered a dog and have done a pin-up photo shoot in front of, in front of El Salvador torture prison.
Well, I hope and trust that she'll be out of government soon, but she's going to slipstream right into some sort of Cinemax prison film. I mean, that picture of her where it looked like a Sephora had exploded on her face and she was in front of a bunch of half-naked dudes, it literally felt like those prison films I used to watch in the 90s after my parents had gone to sleep on Cinemax. Okay, let's take a quick break. Stay with us.
Wait, why does this have no carbon?
Welcome back. History was made last week as Cardinal Robert Previs became Pope Leo XIV, the first American to lead the Catholic Church. Born in Chicago and shaped by decades of missionary work in Peru, Leo stepped onto the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica Sunday to deliver his first blessing. He called for peace in Ukraine and Gaza, urged leaders to reject war, and emphasized caring for young people and the vulnerable. His message and background signal a potentially progressive path forward. Tim, what does the new Pope's background and his first public message tell you about the direction that he may take the church?
I've got to tell you, my mother couldn't be more thrilled. I'm a little bit of a lapsed Catholic.
Well, that's
myself.
important.
As we were just talking about the gay stuff, but there were some jokes on the internet that he was the bulwark Pope, and it was like right in my mom's lane because he was, he voted in Republican primaries, I guess, in 2012 up until 2016, and then he stopped, and then he had multiple tweets criticizing Trump and Vance. It's pretty wild that we can go through the Pope's tweet history now. We are in a different world. He also is a graduate of Villanova, where my little brother went, so like touching a lot of bases for my daily church-going mother. Very
Big for the Miller family. Big for the Miller family.
The broader thing, I don't know. I think that the College of Cardinals probably had a lot of things in their minds, not just the fact that this person was American or our domestic political concerns. And frankly, he hasn't even been in America that much. He was in Peru and Italy for most of his service to the church. And so I don't know. I will say this: it's whether they intended this or not. I do think it is nice to have an American on the world stage that is offering a counter view about what it means to be a person and a human than our president.
True.
And I don't know that he's going to be like the woke pope of every lefty's dreams on a variety of issues. Like the Catholic Church does, the Catholic Church's views on gender and sexuality and abortion and women priests and all that. But I think that he is someone that it's very clear that he actually cares about his fellow humans. He cares about humanity. And that is in direct contrast to the president who only cares about himself. And so I don't, we'll see what exactly it means for the Catholic Church. I think probably a continuation of Francis more than any big, massive changes based on the Catholics in good standing in my life. TBD a little bit on all that, but just as a former PS2 PR, marketing and PR people.
Is it not telling that these larger religious figures are outwardly criticizing Trump for his rhetoric? Catholics and everybody else, nobody gives a fuck about religious shit ever. It's just kind of like a thing you do to virtue signal. That's it. I don't know what else to say. Sorry.
Well, it's
That's
good.
been true even since I was a kid.
It's good. It's nice PR for America at a time where our PR is pretty shitty.
My thesis is that this is the third world leader that got elected by Trump. Anthony Albanese, Mark Carney were both supposed to lose, especially Carney overcame a 25-point deficit. And I think there is such a gag reflex globally around Donald Trump that he is electing world leaders, just not the world leaders that he's hoping would be elected. And I think this is another example when I think the papacy is really strategic and says, where can we have the most impact? And part of that is which region is struggling and would benefit most and get the most attention around these very humanistic values and code of decency. And when the Eastern Bloc was struggling, they picked someone from Poland. And I don't think it's any accident that they picked an American pope, that they said, if we are really troubled by what this lack of humanity, the call sign, or I think the statement that literally identifies America right now is the following. It was made by Bill Gates, and I'm paraphrasing, but it's thematically the same. The world's richest man is killing the world's poorest people.
Based.